Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of Co-Creating with AI. I'm Martin, and with me is Rasmus. How are you today, Rasmus?
I'm good. Yeah, pretty energetic. We had a little after work with the team and playing bull last night. It was like real summer night, kind of drunk teenagers in the park. Everyone was having a good
Yeah,
time. It was, I don't know, it's Swedish summer coming, so very nice. How are
that's
you?
nice. I'm also good. We had a cute incident with cats dragging in a crow baby into the kitchen, and it survived, so we could rescue it from the cats. And now we have we put it outside, and the parents are coming to get it. So they discovered it, and they are now right now outside trying to figure out if it's a trap or if they can fly down to get take care of the baby.
Yeah, I never
So
understood that thing. Like why
yeah,
do animals like if there's human scent? Is that because they think it's a trap, or like is it just
I
because
don't know.
they go so much by scent, probably
Yeah,
that if it
maybe
doesn't smell like their baby, it's like
you're
wrong.
not my baby anymore. Like,
Yeah, probably.
yeah. But today we're going to talk about like a future trend that we see coming. We talked about this just now, where um, like the past 2 years have in the startup world, AI startups have been all about building AI tools for other companies, where the startup is all about making the latest and greatest AI, something like a chat or an agent system, or make music with AI or something like that. But we see that there's probably a more mature wave of companies, startups, coming, where you actually use AI to do something. Like when is the first real, maybe I don't know, business consultancy company coming, picking up competition with McKinsey and just providing a very traditional service, but being driven by AI rather than building like AI, an AI consultancy bot. And so hopefully we can get to some real world examples of that, and some gazing into the future about of what that world will look like when we get there. What are your thoughts on this topic?
No, I think it's. I was excited when you brought it up as your like a trend spotting, and I think that's what I'm actually seeing as well, just at work, like the companies we work with. It's like I think with the AI startups, the main point is sort of automate. It's saying, hey, before you had to do this, now you don't have to do it at all anymore. Whether that's, creating, like actually drawing an image, right? Or
Mm.
animating a little video, or creating a 3D model, or recording the music, if you have music generation. And that's obviously hugely valuable. But I think where we're focusing with Multiply as well is like accelerating instead of automating.
Mm.
So so like just one example is like one company we're just like getting started with that does translation, like traditional translation business, right? And to be honest, like doing direct, like for like doing translation only with AI, right? So if we would launch ourselves as a competitor to this business, right? You can just translate directly via Multiply, and you
Mm.
can, but you won't get it to the quality that these people can do, very much like exactly to this niche, exactly in this brand voice across languages. We
Yeah.
can do that very well. We can do like 90%. So why do I think if we look at that business, right? If they use AI, whether it's Multiply or whatever, right, to accelerate themselves,
Mm.
then that's an offering. Like they are now the AI native translation agency. And they could do that either by, hiding it and just charging the same rates for as long
Yeah.
as they can, right? Or they can actually go out and compete on price because now
Mm.
they can do it cheaper than their competitors. And I've actually heard examples of both, which I think is the really interesting, like, positioning which maybe we'll get to that later, but like there's a real choice. Like seems like all companies are like looking at AI, but there's
Yeah.
also a choice like if they position themselves as using AI. And I
Mm.
think that's where the startup opportunity comes. That most existing companies are very reluctant to cut price. Because so if
Mm.
they can capture efficiency gains using AI, they're going to still try to charge the same. Most of them will, and that's the opportunity for the startup. That's the like unreasonable margin, like your margin is my opportunity, kind of Jeff Bezos quote,
Hmm.
where a startup would come in and be like AI native business consultants, as you say, or AI native translation service, or AI native. But it was still accelerated. It still needs people, I believe, in a lot of these industries. It's not like a self-service do-it-yourself tool. It's actual people with actual competence using AI to be much, much quicker and therefore
Mm.
being able to compete. That's like my high level view. We can go into other examples as well.
Yeah.
But what do you think? Like, how do you think about it?
And I and the example that came up for me is super old actually. When I was living in Japan in 2001, I was in contact. I worked for a Swedish sales company called Gadelius. I did web development for them, and and they were selling Scandinavian products in the Japanese market. And one Danish company that came wanting to use them as a sales office was Readsoft, which is a Danish company that did machine learning. That this is like 24 years ago, but they did what they had an offering where you could scan forms with their software, and they used machine learning for character recognition of forms, and they had this really great solution for that. And something that they talked about in their pitch was that they managed to, like, because back then, like, this was a quarter of a century ago, form scanning was actually done manually, and there was all these companies in every country. There were a bunch of companies providing form scanning as a service by humans. So you sent 1,000 forms of something, and they sent an Excel file back. And so what they did first was to sell to all of those form scanning companies, so they could continue their business, but basically fire a big portion of their staff, because they could do it by machine instead. And then when they had covered 100% of that market of the form scanning companies, they started to sell to the form scanning companies' customers instead,
Right.
and automating, like, goes straight to them. So they calculated that, like, when they started out, the entire market value, like of those form scanning companies, that was a big measure of, like, their turnover. The sum of their turnover was the entire market. And when they were done, they had sold like 1.6 times the full market value, because they first sold to the suppliers and then sold
Mm.
to supplier customers. So they managed to, like, almost double the Danish market in their sales. And maybe that's something that can be done. I mean, if you generalize that, now you can do the same thing. That was basically automation rather than acceleration. But now you can do the same thing in many more use cases. That was a very, very specific case where machine learning very early could provide value, because a form is such a repeated, strict, formalized structure to read from. Now you can do the same thing with, like, all of the law firms can automate their agreement handling, and like, just reading agreements, and or taking one thing that is a common use case is you want to digitalize, for a company with 2,000 employees, you have all of their employee agreements as PDFs scanned, like, or not even scanned, but now you can process them with AI. So that, and there's a local company where I live, who is the Sweden's um, a major supplier in data sheets on chemicals. That's something that you're required if you are the producer or reseller of a chemical. You are required by law to have a data sheet on that specific chemical. And for some companies, that's like thousands of data sheets that they need to keep up to date with regulations and with updates on the service. And like I think that's also a very very AI friendly business to um, I mean make more productive with AI.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. Like, I think the example you took is actually really relevant. And of course, this is going to play out differently depending on how susceptible the service is to automation, like the full automation, right?
Hmm.
So in this example, they could as well, use this service to digitize their forms themselves, right? The end
Hmm.
customers. And in some cases, maybe there's this would just be part of the service, say of a business consultant or of someone else, that there's actually competence needed. But in any case, whether it's like fully automated or more like accelerated, the human is still needed and the competence is still needed. I
Hmm.
still think the same dynamic is likely to play out,
Hmm.
which is that, of course, there's some inertia, right, in like customer relationships and ways of doing things. So, like,
Hmm.
I'm not saying this is immediate or anything, but I'd say the trend should be that it's very true that AI, I mean, either AI will take your job, but more
Hmm.
likely someone using AI will,
Hmm.
which is kind of the kind of standard quote people throw around these days, and I agree a lot with, which is that if you don't start accelerating your business, one, you're not capturing value, right? That's available there right now because you can be more efficient and keep the prices the same for some period of time. And two, you're not going to be able to stay competitive towards other existing competitors that start using AI or new
Hmm.
entrants that go like fully AI native. Um, and I think the broader thing here, which the market hasn't been focused on as much, is what you're saying, is that these services, these ways that AI can bring efficiency gains, but where the end customer cannot as easily, or is not likely to start using like fully automate AI automation tools straight away, but will still go through the same kind of businesses that have been their suppliers or providers or consultants uh, currently. So I think like there's a lot of these actually. I think there's
Hmm.
so many of these that will and it should be like, if you look at the business consultant, let's just imagine that one of the big four starts aggressively cutting price. I mean, they're not likely, but like, or a new entrant comes in there and provides most of the accounting services, but completely AI powered for like a quarter of the price.
Hmm.
That's going to be like hugely disruptive, and it's likely to happen in most kind of professional services industries,
Yeah.
I think. I mean, is there anything
Um,
that's safe? Do you think? Like, is there anywhere that's like not where the competitive pressure won't step up because of AI?
well, there's one hurdle to get over, which is that compute actually costs money, and like one thing that hasn't happened yet is that uh, the new generation of AI has not taken over computer gaming yet, because running inference actually costs money, and when you make a successful computer game, people are going to play it a lot, and if you just naively build if you use OpenAI to build, like, say, a dialogue engine for your computer game, so people can actually have awesome conversations with the NPCs, the non-player characters in your game,
Yeah,
and that is a fantastic prospect, but there's still no games that have done it. And the reason is that it will basically cost about at least $1 per hour to play that game, and there's such a huge price pressure. People are paying maybe $9 for the lifetime value of the game on Steam. If it's a really like a triple A level game, they might pay $39 as a lifetime value. but that's still like that would cover, so that would cover like 40 or 39 hours of gameplay of the LLM cost if you do it naively. And if you want to run a local model, then you introduce very, very like high requirements on the graphics card, on the GPU,
Yeah.
on the local computer. So what what could be like a solution for that would be to have to train very, very small models specifically for the dialogue of a specific game, because you don't, like, if you want to talk to NPCs in a game, maybe you don't need to be able to talk about everything in the world. The NPCs should be interested and capable of talking about their small virtual world, and not like the all of humanity's interests. So and that's an example of where there's a hurdle, like it's almost like a business model hurdle. um, the game industry has been so they've been trying to turn games into a subscription model, and gamers have so violently resisted. Like there's so, like, any company that tries to make it, like, to make money from gamers, do like after they purchase the game, have really met a hard resistance. And
World of Warcraft is though, right? There's a subscription. There are a
yeah,
few
yes,
examples, right? There are a few
yes, there are a
examples,
few
right?
examples that succeeded. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, and maybe so that's because World of Warcraft is very social. You actually interact with other people, so you
yeah.
can pay for that. Like the player value is very high.
But how does
But
that generalize then? Like if you think about it, so games, that's okay. So that's in
yeah,
games. What
yeah,
other what other kind of, if we look at like the trend spotting that started this, like what other
yeah.
kind of
So
industries does that apply to? Do you think?
so what I think that we will see is are the AI native versions. If we look at the internet era, the really big players that became disruptive is, for example, Uber, who like which is an app driven taxi company. And a lot of other apps have app companies have enabled other taxi companies to digitalize, but no one has been able to do like so much like the end-to-end experience as Uber, since they were app native. And Airbnb for hotels also, or to which disrupted hotels, were also really like internet driven. So what I think is that what could become the first big hit in like just an AI native version of a traditional business. It's very unpredictable what it could be, but it could basically be anything that is just knowledge work. Like it could be a law firm that
Yeah,
really like takes over the entire, like a
yeah,
global law firm market.
yeah.
uh, and uh, and uh, and then it just becomes a really big successful brand that everyone trusts.
Yeah, I think that's actually quite likely, and I think that might be a really like a difference. If we look at Uber, right? So Uber, what they do, they basically were able to create the marketplace with the kind of real time location,
Mm,
so to say, which was necessary. And then you needed the phone to, everyone need to have a smartphone with internet for that to work, both the cars and the people. And that enabled them to disrupt the traditional taxi business, right? And build network effects, which was their moat. Um, if we look at then a law firm and with AI, I mean, what we're basically saying now is that we can have a global business in what has traditionally been a
mm,
localized business,
yes.
because all of a sudden knowledge and kind of intelligence is not the limiting factor. For example,
Mm,
language barriers and local laws, all of that stuff is
mm,
completely solvable. Just as if we think we have this amazing AI law firm with all its kind of safeguards and procedures, and ensuring accuracy and ensuring the right language and checks and double checks and different agents, tuk, 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 right? And maybe
mm,
the probably human layer like that can be efficiently introduced there as well. So that it's not like it's probably accelerated and not fully automated, is my guess.
mm,
That could be, of course, if you have that infrastructure, it could be rolled out across the globe very, very quickly. And the same thing for accounting, the same thing for, yeah, I mean, I'd say professional services is might be where we see, you know, the next, the real like AI giant, except for then, of course, NVIDIA and the picks and
Yeah.
shovels, right?
Yeah.
Could be.
And I was also reminded now that about another example, which is our investor in Multiply, Christian Ubbesen.
Yeah.
His book publishing company
Yeah.
is doing exactly this. Like they are like book publishing and book translation is a very traditional, multiple centuries old business, but they are doing a new kind of book publishing company with which is AI driven, where they make apparently high enough quality translations to many languages, and then with some human quality assurance, they can publish authors that which have never before thought to become international can now be published to dozens or 100 countries, 100 languages at the same time, thanks to AI.
Yeah, that is a really good example.
Yeah.
And then the question is, in that case, is that edge like so important it can compete with the kind of existing distribution,
Mm.
etc. Of the big publishers? Maybe not would be my guess, but there are probably other parts of the publishing industry that can build that moat. Maybe that's just their first edge, and then the next part is kind of accelerating authors in writing books, or
Mm.
I don't know, like different kind of models, allowing end users to affect the book they read while they're reading it. Oh, this shouldn't have happened. Why did that happen? Like, it was so stupid, that character. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there are things there, but it's a really interesting example.
Yeah.
I'm also seeing, like, from our end, I mean, for partly like in like we have one example of like a leading communication agency, a global one that really wants to be AI native. They understand, like, that's the future. They understand these dynamics, and then but they're really interesting in that. So what they want to do is, first of all, do it themselves, and then second of all, try to be the picks and shovels for that industry. So allow others
Oh,
to, in this
really?
case,
Yeah.
through Multiply,
Mm.
use their way of working,
Hmm.
their AI powers, and also they have a lot of ideas for how their clients,
Mm.
big advertisers, can utilize AI
Yeah.
in their work. So they want to be like a picks and shovels there as well. So I think there's going to be a lot of there are going to be a lot of interesting models. And
Mm.
one of them is the law firm we described, which competes with all the other law firms. And then they're going to be the existing law firms that kind of go AI native. And then
Mm.
they're going to be the kind of picks and shovels to the law firm industry, so to say.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think this, so it's just going to come from so many directions that I mean, I don't know if that's been true of different of previous shifts, that it can come from so many directions and so many angles at the same time, which should increase then the speed of the competitive dynamics here,
Mm.
and like the price pressure, and also like the opportunity, right? Because if you can move quickly, there's so much. Yeah, I mean, we talked about it already, but whichever way you go, there's so much opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're a startup or an existing business, I think.
Mm. And so there's going to be, for one category company that already have a big customer base, and they already have inertia that they can turn over into a more efficient workflow with AI. And then for if you are starting up a completely new business, you don't have that customer base, but maybe you don't have the resistance of your existing business model and expectations on. You can set completely new expectations on pricing and delivery, and then perhaps move faster by doing that. So there's really going to be a battle of business models and technology playing out in the AI field over the next few years.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting also, just like one large kind of multinational company that we're working with a member of the C-suite to see if we can bring AI into their strategic process, which is hyper complex,
Yeah.
like ridiculously complex.
Mm.
And it's like top down, bottom up. There's so many different cross sections and layers of this organization,
Mm.
and of course, so much data that goes in there. And I think that if we succeed with them there, then of course that's something that's proprietary to them. But we will also have proven that we can support that kind of business in that kind of process, right?
Mm.
That's kind of then a picks and shovels for research and strategy, kind of, right? That's
Mm.
and then the question is, do we then try to sell to the multinationals, or do we try to sell to the management consultants, right? That can bring that kind of workflows in. So it's going to be really interesting to, yeah, I mean, so many different venues. Once you prove that something can be automated or accelerated with AI, it seems like, I mean, this conversation makes me actually more optimistic of the different venues we and others can go, whether it's an
Mm.
existing business or a startup, to actually monetize that.
Mm.
Should be like many different ways.
So and then we have the next frontier beyond that will be there was one there's a blogger named Wayne Chang who in April he posted a post about the coming rise of the zero human company, where he
Mm,
prophesized about in the future there being organizations that only employ AI, where there's no human involved. And perhaps it brings a more of a science fiction edge to it. It's like to automate the entire company. But one way to make that more realistic is perhaps to envision an AI freelancer, that just like an AI agent that publish an ad on Upwork or a freelance portal saying I can do accounting, or I can do the PR work for you. And then, like in theory, you could automate that completely, set it up as a small business, and then just replicate to all over the world. uh, when you succeed liftoff in that, like you can actually produce value that people want to pay for.
yeah, and it's interesting because the distribution is already there for knowledge work,
Yeah.
right? I
Yes.
mean, it's already there, whether it's these marketplaces, whether it's
Mm.
brokers, whether it's then existing, say, it's funny, right, with remote work. So, like,
Hmm.
let's even say that I don't know if Accenture does this, right, but maybe they employ some data scientists, remotely,
Mm.
right? And technically, you can, say I could have my agents, work for them remotely, right?
Yeah.
So at least in like the terms of like a one-person company, efficiently using AI, there are so many like different distribution channels, because it's not kind of a new kind of product, right? Like, for example, like legal work. It's not like I come up with a new type of legal work.
Mm.
It's like the laws are the laws, and
Yeah.
you need the contracts you need, etc.
Yeah.
Um,
And
so
it's already
it's
so.
completely the same. It's there, right?
Yeah, and already so low hanging fruit to just ask ChatGPT to write a small like stock sales agreement, like with
Yeah.
just when you sell something to, or rent something out, to have ChatGPT produce that the agreement for that. But there's like, if, at least I when I do that, I experience some kind of insecurity, like should I let a human look at this? And if it's a private thing, and maybe I don't, but if it's a business thing, then I do. But just to have like a middle ground there, where I know that there is a human looking at this. It takes just a few hours extra and just costs a few dollars more, not like uh 100x the cost, but just like a little extra on top of the AI work. That would definitely be a viable business for an AI driven law firm.
Yeah, and I mean, and also like just I think the sense of safety that would come when it's like not ChatGPT but
Yeah,
Swedish lawyer.ai,
exactly.
and it's very clear, trained on all the Swedish legal corpus,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Click here what you need. Okay.
exactly.
And
Yeah,
then next step is one of our, top tier lawyers will
yeah,
look at this. I mean, that
and
whole, it's going to be
yeah,
there.
and you can actually you can verify that it has read all of the Swedish court cases, and like it has it's trained and fine tuned on so much more data than what a human is capable to, and it can be up to date, and it can also like you can show that it passes the law exam every year or something like that, just to like getting top grades on the
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. You could even quiz it. Like, you could even be like, allow it to be quizzed, right?
yeah,
And to feel
exactly.
safe.
Like, anyone that doubts it will always um, uh, it will always step up if someone challenges it in a
Mm,
legal knowledge battle online.
yeah. Yeah, and in the case of like, I mean, the way Perplexity presents it, for example, with sources, etc.,
Hmm.
I think that's going to be very mainstream in these kind of high accuracy applications. So
Yes.
it's actually that you get your contract, and then each thing has a little footnote linked to it. You hover it, and you see
Mm,
this is here because of this law. This is here
mm,
because of this law. This here because of this consideration from this court case.
yeah.
That's that, and I mean that's not something you get from a law firm,
Mm,
right? That's then you just implicitly trust that these people know what they're doing, and often they do, but sometimes they don't. I mean,
yeah.
it's not that rare that when I do have some kind of legal work done for me that I think of things they haven't thought of, right?
Mm,
Um, and like ask questions they haven't thought of. So I think, I mean, let's see. But I really think your trend spotting here is spot on. That there are going to be some very big companies, and I think quite a few of them at least will be startups that really kind of just go build the AI native version of an existing, I don't know, I want to call it boring, but existing kind of professional services business at
yeah.
least.
Yeah. AI is very glamorous. When do we see the first wave of unglamorous AI
Yeah,
companies?
yeah, exactly. Boring AI. I wonder if that's taken. It's probably taken. Boring.ai. No, no.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Rasmus, for the chat today. Always a pleasure. And thank you to the listeners as well for being with us all the way. This has been an episode of Co Creating with AI.
Thanks, Martin.